Make Lorene a co-host.
And let me find her now that she's back in.
Hello, Jennifer Salzman.
Hello. Oh, Jennifer, yay. All right, you guys, I want to welcome everybody to the call tonight. I know we're probably going to have a few more people getting on as we're getting started here, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what our idea was around the premise of this particular call. And so, you know, Denise had done a great call several weeks ago, and I think a lot of people loved it and were excited about it. And she talked about mindset and empowering women. And so I kind of threw something out about making a call around that. And so she's going to be one of our guests on here, but Lorene, Pamela, and Trish and I are going to host this call over the next 12 weeks. And what our goal is to give women the really what they need, right, to become empowered. And the four of us have some really powerful stories, things that have happened in our life and how we have just moved forward, and some of it's still going on, right? But every day we just become better and better, and we get more tools and read more books, more development. And so learning all of that has really helped us. And what we wanted to do was tell our stories and be able to help all of you around the same thing, right? And anyway, so what I wanted to do was what I asked, we all talked last night, and what I wanted everybody to do was take about 15 minutes to share their story. And we want to be really respectful of your time. The calls will never go over an hour. And what we want to do is we'll have special guests and kind of end it around into 45 minutes, and then have times for questions and what have you, because we want it to be really interactive, especially for those of you who are guests. If we talk about certain books or we talk about certain techniques that we've learned, then we want to share with you where we got that technique, because really every single book that I've read over the last several years, I always take some little nugget away. I can never remember where I got it from, but I know it was in a book that I read somewhere along the way. So lots of great stuff out there. I used to think that people wrote books to make money, but what I've discovered is most people don't make very much money writing a book, but they're compelled to write it so that they can help people like you and me to get better, to be better. And my goal is for me to be a better me, so I can help all of you to be a better you. Okay, so with that, I wanted to, who wants to go first on telling and sharing their story? So I've got Trish, Pamela, and Lorene. Lorene, are you back?
Jennifer.
What did she say?
Well, her picture was upside down at first before. It's what I thought it was.
Sorry, I'm trying to get the tablet mode, and it's working, so I won't drive crazy.
Actually, I wanted to share some feedback from my husband, who does a lot of calls. And, I also do Toastmasters. And what we do at Toastmasters, which may or may not be a good idea, you guys let me know, is at maybe 15 before Q&A, we're going to stop around 7:45. Is that correct, Joe? Marianne, you're muted?
Yes, I was, but not necessarily tonight, but I'm just saying in the future we'll have 15 minutes of conversation, and then, what do we say, 20 minutes of a guest speaking, and then we're leaving like 15 minutes for questions and what have you. Okay,
so his suggestion in general was to make sure we do end on time, and this is what we do in Toastmasters, is we'll do like a green light, and then you have 15 minutes left in the meeting. Yellow light, 10 minutes left in the meeting, or light card, whatever. Red light, we got to start wrapping it up. So you guys let me know how you feel about that. But nonetheless.
Where are the lights coming from?
I can get some red, green, and yellow cards like we do in Toastmasters.
Okay, no, that's perfect. Or we could, put, in the chat, we could say something in there,
That's true, too.
Question time.
Visual or whatever. So,
Yeah.
so since I have the floor, I guess I'll start. And what are we talking about? A little bit about ourselves,
Yes.
correct?
We're going to share our story. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit in the beginning here, right? So we wanted to share our stories and then we can expand on them. So you go ahead. You've got 15 minutes.
I won't need 15 minutes. So my story, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and went to college for exercise physiology. I've been doing that since even before I graduated from college. So over 33 years. In the meantime, I've also accumulated lots of certifications for group fitness and nutrition therapy. I'm working on a habit coaching certification. And I did that because I need to be better at habits. And I love personal development. I have done a lot of personal development with another organization, and spent a lot of money. And any of you who've done this, probably this might sound similar, spent a lot of money to realize that you're pretty doggone okay anyway, the way you were. And, perhaps a few tweaks here and there, or maybe more than a few tweaks in my case, here and there on a daily basis. I got into network marketing because, I was just in a really tough place and I felt disempowered. I felt at the power of somebody else for my future, for my financial future, for perhaps even my kids' future. And when that realization hit, and it took a while for that to hit, and it took a lot of pain, physical pain, I said, that's it, no more. I need to find something else to cover my butt, so to speak. So network marketing found me. I had actually known Denise for a number of years before I got into business with she and Tom. And I've never looked back. And no matter how long it takes, it will never now leave my daily being. Because not only do I have hope, do I have better health, I know I can provide that and support another woman who has ever felt the way I felt, who's ever felt disempowered by life on somebody else's terms, and help coach them, however that looks. I happen to think network marketing is the greatest ticket of all because it supplies with so many things. But that is why I got into it and why I'll never leave. And then I get to hang out with amazing people like all of you ladies. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Nice. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Ironically, I've known Trish probably, our boys are 25 now, and we've known each other since our boys were about 5. And so while Trish was going through a lot of her life experiences, I was kind of on a parallel path, and I'll share that when when I tell my story. But Pamela, let's hear from you.
Okie doke. All right. Well, my name is Pamela Schwarz, and my story actually began. I was born in Scotland, grew up in the Jersey Shore, lived in Hong Kong. I've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time all around the world, but when I was 13, had a pretty poignant life change thing happen in that my father died from liver cancer. And I sat down with my mom, and my parents were divorced when I was very little. However, I sat down with my mother and said, why do things like this happen? Like, why did my daddy have to die before I graduated 8th grade, before I graduated high school, before I got married, before I had a child. And my mother told me that God provides us with circumstances so that we can help others that we come in contact with in the future. And that really promoted me to create this purpose in my life of helping others. And I started out college pre-med biochem at UMass Amherst and changed gears rather quickly, went to Harvard where I studied linguistics. And everybody said, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "I don't know. I've got this tremendous gift for language, and God's put this in my heart and put me on this path." And it was really fascinating because I couldn't have planned things myself. So I really believe that God laid this all out for me from beginning to end, and came back to the healthcare industry where I became a neuromuscular therapist, specializing in the alleviation of chronic pain and correction of dysfunctional biomechanics. What that means is I work with people, or have worked with people. I retired my private practice 2.5 years ago, but I do still have a handful of patients that have been with me for 15 years, for the entire time of my practice. And they're like my family, and I love them. And a lot of them can't go on with their life without the work that we do together. So I find that to be a very important thing to honor, is that gift of working with them. But what I have found out is that through network marketing, and especially with a product line that has health-related abilities, that I can help more people than I ever could with my two hands in my office. And it's a difficult business to be in, because I traveled on the PGA Tour. I did a lot of travel with my table and doing all that, working on gymnasts and working on sickly people, and it was hard on my body. But I also knew that I could help more people in a different way, and so I became very blessed by that. My husband Andy and I, we have 4 boys. I was divorced twice, and he was divorced once, and so that brought about a whole myriad of difficulty in our lives that we were able to go through and to be successful at. And I think that those are important things for us to touch on as well, that life is tough. There's a lot of things that happen where life has difficulties thrown at you. And I think that we as women, and this is a specific forum for ladies only, and it's very, very important for us to lift each other up, because we have to find that strength within ourselves, but also with each other as sisters. And so that is my intent and goal for this platform. And I'm just so grateful to be here and be a part of it. And I love you all, and I'm so happy to do what I can to help you all.
Nice. Miss Lorene, and thank you. That was great. Oh, you're dark, girlfriend.
Sorry, our lights went out. That's why I took my picture down. We're having this nice little freak storm here, and this is about empowering women, right? And it was me, and this is life at my house. So we're working off of a makeshift light real quick. I'm in the dark. What can I say? I stay that way.
It's never perfect. See, right? Those who are perfectionists constantly trying to be perfect, look perfect. It doesn't happen that way all the time. So
it's the control, sister. It's the control. I'm a control freak.
Oh, okay.
So naturally, it's the karma, whatever I did today. Anyway, so my story. Most everybody knows my story. I married 32 years ago to a wonderful man. We have 4 children. One of my children I call Challenge. Now I call all 4 of them Challenged. I have 5 grandchildren who have all been at my home this week because it's summertime, right? And the oldest is 8 and the youngest is 1. And so I've lived my life pretty much public on Facebook, and I work and coach and mentor and teach, and I'm not a teacher. I started out in my life thinking I'm going to be a secretary, and that grew into being a crazy control freak who was never having children. And when my husband got sick, and I found myself, I woke up one day and I had 4 kids and married, and I said, this is not my life. This was not my plan. And then I realized it really was. And who better to be a mother than me, and who better to be a wife than me? And all of the challenges that I have faced with most of you, and I was scanning to see who was on here. For most of you who know my story, husband being sick, oldest son being challenged, 3 other children. I left my real estate career to take care of family. I mean, who doesn't on this call tonight? Who doesn't make that call every day? You have to wake up and make decisions every day that either challenges you or changes your life. And my perfect plan, God showed me that I did not have a perfect plan, and I just live every day just trying to show everybody who I am, the real me, not be fake. They say fake it till you make it. Well, I can't even do that, so I have no control over my faking power. So I found myself in network marketing, and of which I never thought I would be. I've been here 8 years. Love working with you 4 women. Love this company. But I think it's just as important to know that I love working in my community. I spent several days now doing crazy things around the community. I had coffee with some people today that just want to talk about, the industry itself. And being part of the Association of Network Marketing Professional, I just found myself able to share a lot more than just what I do in this company. And so that's what I'm doing on this call, and just telling and challenging all the women that are on this call to be real, tell your story, share your story, and that's really all that matters. And never be ashamed, because we live the lives we live to share that story with other women, to let them know that they're not the only one out there with a crazy life, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I think I love what you said about what your plan was, and so I'm going to share a little bit about my story. And I grew up in a family of the conversation around money was, there was no conversation around money. We were always broke. Well, not always. Sometimes we lived in really nice places with swimming pools and such, and then cars would get repossessed. And I remember asking my parents, we lent our car to our friend. And then the next car got repossessed. And I'm like, okay, so now we have no cars. We lent all of our cars away. And I think as a kid, you're like, just not making sense. One day, I remember I came home from I must have been in middle school. And when I left in the morning, the house was perfect. The curtains were hung and the beds were made. And I came home from school to my parents' car with a U-Haul, and they just yelled at me, said, hurry up, get in. And I remember I had all my school books still in my hands, and I got in the car and we drove away. And that was a lot of my life. Sometimes I was in school and sometimes I wasn't in school. And when I was graduating from high school, I got a grant to go to college. I was very excited. I was going to live in the dorm. And my mom said, no, you just live at home, because it's not that far from the college, and that'll be great. So I did. And about 6 months in, I think it was, or maybe earlier than that, my parents informed me that we were losing our house. And so I had to find a place to live if I wanted to continue in college, because they were moving out of town, which I did. And I completed 1 year of college. And then I met the love of my life at that point. And a young man and he was from Grand Island, Nebraska. And he swooped me off my feet. And eventually I moved to Nebraska and Grand Island, and no less. And Dee can attest to this, that you would only move there for love, nothing less, right? But as life would have it, Lorene talked about what her perfect plan was. we thought we'd spend the rest of our lives together. And shortly after I moved up there, he was diagnosed with cancer. And we went ahead and got married, but 3 months later, he passed away. And I suddenly found myself at 21, a widow, in a place where, it was all new territory for me. I didn't know what to do. I thought about moving home, but at the same time, I decided that I would stay in Grand Island and make a life for myself. And ironically, one of my first husband's cousins introduced me to my husband now, the second love of my life. And we've been married for 35 years, and we have 2 kids. And so I think in a lot of ways, I had a really unique perspective on life, because losing someone at a very young age, and then shortly after that, I lost my sister. So death suddenly felt like it was just lingering around me, and it was scary. It was scary for me. I kept thinking, I've got cancer. Ken's got, somebody's got, my kids. And so it took a long time for me to just kind of relax in life, if you can imagine, what that's like. But I just was at a place where I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel safe about anything around me. So anyway, my kids, got older, and my daughter was in a near-fatal car accident, and we became in a financial despair. You think you've got everything all figured out in insurance and all that kind of stuff, but it really was impactful on our family. And I owned my own business. I'd been an entrepreneur and owned my own business. And when I wasn't working, I wasn't getting paid. So shortly before my daughter's accident, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. So my mom was down in Texas. My daughter was in ICU in Colorado. And I felt just almost like it was ripping me in half. I wanted to be there for my mom, but I couldn't leave, my daughter. And so once she was able to travel, we went down and saw my mom. And about 4 months after she was diagnosed, she passed. And there was a long haul of healing in my daughter's life, about 4 years. She had a traumatic brain injury. She had, several surgeries. She has her eye sits in a metal basket, and she has a rod going down her jaw. And so, as you can imagine, there was lots of therapy. And suddenly my business had just, it was at a critical level. And I wasn't making any money. I couldn't work. I was physically and emotionally a wreck. And so, my husband was so great. He continued to work, and we just started downsizing. We tried to get the banks to work with us, and they didn't. And we had to file bankruptcy. And it was probably one of the most humiliating times in my life, because I kept looking around, and I was like, I never wanted to be like my parents, right? I was always worried about being like my parents, about being broke, about not, having good respect around money and what have you. And suddenly I found myself there, because that's all I kept thinking about. Do you guys ever think about things that show up in your life? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And so I knew I had to do something different. And I went on this journey of self-discovery. And I always say, at one point I woke up and I just said, oh my God, I hate my job, and I'm the boss. I realized that I just wasn't passionate about it. I wanted to help people, but I didn't feel like I was really helping people. And I couldn't get my groove back. And so my good friend Trish, as I said, we were both kind of going through some life experiences together, and neither one of us had really had hope. And when she talks about getting her independence back, I just wanted to get myself back. And I didn't know what that looked like anymore. I didn't know who I was anymore. I just felt like I'd failed so hard. And I wanted to be so much better all my life. I always wanted to be better than that. And, it was such a difficult time. And I think about, it could have been the end of Ken and our marriage, or it could have been, who knows? Luckily our daughter, survived an accident that night they didn't think she'd pull through. And so living with, my mom passing and all of this going on, and just, financial despair, I just had no hope, and I didn't know where to turn. And, Trish came over and she introduced network marketing to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, there might be some hope for me here, because I wanted to be a better me. You know, I wanted to get better. I just didn't know what I needed to do that. And so getting into, and this is about empowering women. So it's not necessarily about network marketing, but those of us that have found it, you know, realize just how important it really is, and the lessons you learn along the way, and the growing of personal development and empowering other people around you. I've never, you know, when I was in the corporate world, it was like, stab you back. Oh, let me stab you one more time, you know. But in this realm, and loving all these women here, we all support each other. So it's not like, oh, hey, I remember I was going to get a promotion and somebody said, hey, well, good luck with that, because nobody could help me. You know, they weren't going to put in a good word for me, because, hey, they might be fighting for the same promotion. But in what we do, we help empower women and lift them up versus stomping them down. So that's kind of my story. And I've been on this journey of self-discovery and personal development, and I have just devoured numerous books around money, you know, leadership, you know, becoming just more than I ever wanted to be, and having that feeling of joy inside, right? And like Lorene shared, and Trish and Pamela, you know, we've all had things that happen in our lives that could have taken us down to our knees, but we chose to do something different. And so empowering women and giving them tools, or giving them ideas of how that they can raise and lift up, and how we can help them. That's what our goal is here today. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, let's see. Oh,
Marianne, that was beautiful. I just want to say, you know, every time I hear your story, I just love you so much more. And, you know, it really is true that when we are brought to our knees, incredible things can happen, because it is in that brokenness that we find beauty and freedom. And that's really what I think we need to help each other to understand, and to be vulnerable. Good night, baby, Mother. That's our youngest son, Gavin, going to bed. You know, to be vulnerable and to be real, and to understand that, you know, life isn't perfect, no matter how good something might look. And, you know, there's always hardship that we go through. And, you know, there's so much more. There's so much more that I know of all these ladies, of the things that we've all been through. You know, those of you that haven't spoken today, I know stories of things that are real and true. And I want to make sure that you all understand that this is a place where you can be safe, where you can be loved. And, you know, in the unity, we can find greater power, and we can find that strength and that courage to go on and go forward. You know, because it is hard, it is scary, but I love what Marianne said. The one thing in network marketing is that, you know, personal development with the paycheck. You know, one of the things that we do about getting better and being more successful is the ability to grow. And we're going to do better if we make ourselves better. And we're not stabbing each other in the back, because there's no need to do that. There's so much out there that's available for all of us to have and find success. And we're going to do much better. There are some in the industry, I will say, because I've been around the block, and there are some companies out there that are not very pleasant, but you need to make sure that you have a right home. And we're not going to talk business specific here or company specific here, but it is important to understand, to make sure that you have a good place, a safe place, a home, a place where you know that you are loved and cared for. And that's what I'm very thankful for.
You know, I work with a lot of women in this profession, way more women that I work closely with outside of this call and other calls that I've been invited to be on. I work with a lot of women through the Association of Network Marketing Professionals that are not in this company. And, you know, I find that it's just a mutual respect with these women. And I've been able to learn that in the past, when I was a realtor for 20 years, it was extremely competitive. And when you have a strong personality, you end up becoming competitive. But I never liked the competition. I always felt like you could lift yourself higher if you didn't have that, not level of accountability, but just that hype that people build up to try to get you off your game or promote you into higher grounds. My broker used to tell me exactly what I needed every month to get where I needed to get because I had step-by-step goals. But when they would pitch me against another realtor, I found myself standing back and not wanting the competition, even though it drove me. And I think for women, it's really, really hard because of where we came from to understand that we're in a culture that we no longer have to compete, we empower. And that's why I was so honored when I was invited to be part of this, because I think women, last night was it you, Marianne, that was saying that 70% of this profession is made up of women. And is it any wonder? Because we spend most of the money in the households, and we make the decisions of where that money goes. And I mean, I have a wonderful husband that tolerates me truly and does a lot of the shopping, and he likes to go grocery shopping and things. So I don't really have to think about that or wrap my mind around that. But it's an empowerment that I can spend a lot of time with women in this profession and spend a lot of time just in general with women that I can mentor. And so I appreciate having a floor space that I can actually share the real side of working and not having to worry about children at home, and be able to be in a group of women that are just as powerful, no negative competition, just an uplifting of each other. Because in all the other areas I've worked, it's always been about competition and knocking the person off the hill to take the place. And in this profession, I found it very interesting that it is more women than men, or I should say not than men, but we're carrying the weight. We can actually pull this because we empower each other when allowed. And again, like Pamela said, there are companies and other women out there that will compete and knock you off and cheat and be wrong. And, I get that every day, but we just have to pick ourselves up, brush ourselves off, move forward. And I think, like Marianne, my stories, you feel like you're the only one in the world that has those hard stories. But Marianne's story is there to help someone else pull through that. So it's a hand up instead of a hand out. And my story with my children and my story with my crazy life, that's used to help other women that have that same thing. So that's what this call is all about. Like Pamela said, it's a safe room. It's a place that we cut it off after the 15 minutes into the call so that other people can't jump on. It's women only. So we're going to be watching to make sure no men jump on here, because women have different body makeups. We have different needs. We have different issues. And we just wanted a very safe place that someone knew that there's someone out there. And we did mention, Marianne, that all time zones are covered. We laughed about that. You're muted. So, but if you're in a certain time zone and you need one of us, Pamela is on the East Coast, I'm Central, and we're just going to decide which one wants to be the Mountain and West Coast, and Marianne and Trisha. They're both from out there.
Up there.
We're kind of closer than, closer.
But that's what this is for, and I'm honored to be part of it.
Well, thank you. It's funny because whenever I would go out someplace, and I didn't go out very much during a lot of that time, but people would offer me a drink, and I'd say, oh, no, that's all right, I'm not drinking. Because I always thought, oh my gosh, if I start, I might never stop, right?
Amen.
And, I wanted to keep a clear head around what was going on in my life. But thank you guys. You guys had a lot of nice compliments on there, and we're hoping that, we can help you in whatever aspect of your life. It's interesting because even the things that I've done around for me personally, right, have enhanced my relationships with my family, with my children, with my husband, with other people in my life. And so I did have to kick a lot of people to the curb. I'm just going to say that right up front. None of you. But I just remembered I was reading this book from, it was called The Wealthy Spirit, and it started talking. It's a daily affirmation book. It's great. It's got like a story and then an affirmation. And this is a book that somebody just kind of gave me for my birthday. And when I started reading it, it was probably is the one thing that changed my life and got me on this what I call a journey of self-discovery. But it was really interesting because she said, well, there's tunas, there's sharks, and then there's dolphins. And so she said the sharks, you know, are the people that just suck the life out of you. The tunas are people that just, you know, they're just kind of there. They don't really support. And then the dolphin, right? That's people that are like-minded. And so I'm like, I just remember I was riding my stationary bike and I'm just bawling my eyes out because I'm like, oh my God, all my friends are sharks. And it was true. I just was like, oh my God, you know, nobody was supportive. Nobody, you know, when you talk to them about stuff, they could care less. They had their own deals. They didn't even want to hear what was going on. And so I just remember feeling so lonely when I decided that I was going to have to kick all these people to the curb, which I did. Slowly but surely I did it. But what it did was it opened up for other people to come in, better people, good people, you know, people like you guys. None of this drama stuff. I just, when I think back of what my life was before and you know, was all around drama and gossip and stabbing people in the back. And like what you were saying, Lorene, I was like, I wanted to be the best person I could be. And it was so difficult when other people were, you know, and making it so that you couldn't be that person. And putting you, you know, your back up against the wall and turning you on your own self in some ways. I felt like that happened. And so just being here and being around everybody is so refreshing. So Trish, what do you want to offer up here?
You know, it's interesting. I was thinking, I'm muted. Okay. About all of this and, you know, being in a win-win situation. So if you go to church, whatever your church looks like, you've always heard of abundance. And then you step out of church and life hits you. Or as you get older and life hits you harder and harder and harder. For me, I just kept getting up and getting hit, getting up, getting hit. And then not just, you know, it was like emotionally, of course. And I'm like, I know that this is out here. I keep hearing this is out here. Why aren't you helping me? You know? And then you discover, that's what I love about network marketing is you realize that life is win-win. And then you get to the personal development part of victim versus responsible. Life doesn't do anything to you without you allowing it or making a choice to lead you down that path. It's not being done to you. Drill down, and it's actually, you chose that. And so when you hold, you know, I used to carry a little mirror in my car, and when something would trigger me, I started going, mirror, mirror on the wall. This is triggering me. What's that about? And the mirror was because I had to see what was all that past garbage that was triggering me. It had nothing to do with the thing, really, that was triggering me. A little bit, but that's their thing. If it was a person, that was their thing, not mine. I allowed it to trigger me. So all these beautiful things happen when you're around people who believe in win-win, who have these huge spirits. And that's what I love about, thank you. That's what I love. I gave the mirror to someone else, Cindy, and I'm not sure they use it. However, I have one that I just use constantly. It's immediate. Sometimes I'll pick up my phone and go, huh, and then I'll turn it around like, okay, you know, like when you're 5. It bounces off me and goes back to you. And so I never really, I mean, I heard it growing up, going to church. I never really experienced it until I got into network marketing. And I'll never, ever let that go, no matter what. Because it is the truth, it is the way, and it really is the light. Win-win, responsible versus victim. And that's what we're doing here. Yes, ma'am.
You know, what it made me think of, and thank you for that, Trish, what it made me think of is that there's no such thing as coincidence. And that when we come in contact with somebody that we really, have you ever met somebody that you really, really don't like, whether it's right off the bat or after a little bit of time, and you're like, oh, why does this person keep coming up in my life? Like, why are they still here? And the truth is that there is a reason. There's no such thing as coincidence. There's a reason for the connection. And if it's repetitive, then that means you need to stop and really pay attention and take a look at it. And I've done a lot of Bible study teaching for kids all the way up from first grade to 8th grade, and working with adults and treat your body like a temple classes and so forth. But the truth is what the Bible says is when things are repeated, it's because it's something you need to remember. So when you meet that person that you just don't like, if you can stop for a minute and look at it, I look at it, Trish, as a shadow of myself. So it's my shadow self that I see, and I need to stop and look and see if what I'm being presented with is something I need to work on me, or is it about the interaction itself? Is either that person supposed to teach me something, or am I supposed to teach them something? And so if you can treat every relationship you have with that loving kindness and respect, then it's always a win-win. You know?
Amen.
Yeah. Lorene, you have something?
No, I'm good.
You're
I always have something.
always have something.
Well, bring it, girlfriend, bring it.
Yeah. It's, I like this, Dee saying she's, knocking off negative people. And I think what happens is that there's so much ego in the world, right? And a lot of you are shaking your heads. And it's so interesting when you interact with someone and that ego shows up, and you can see it as clear as day. Now, now I can. But before, I would come back with ego, right? And then their ego would come back at me. And the next thing you know, it's like these things where, all of a sudden you're reacting and you're like, well, I should be pissed off because that person said something that's not appropriate, or I don't agree with, or whatever. But who says you need to be pissed off, right? Society says, oh, you need to get mad, or you need to get back at this person. And so, kind of taking a step back from this ego, and believe me, I know right when it shows up, and it still shows up. I just have to go, okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to handle this. You just stay in the back seat and work your way through it. But, when you take that time to really, like you said, reflect on, okay, why is this hitting me where it's hitting me? Because I remember, and Trish and I we've done a lot of personal development together as well. And we did this 3-day class, but I remember, my stepdad, or my real dad, who he also passed away when I was like 19. I never really knew him. And yet I was making decisions in my life based on what I thought about why I thought he never loved me, right, as a kid. And so when my parents got divorced, my parents moved away. And I had an older brother, and it seemed like the only time my dad ever paid attention to me was when my older brother was there. That's my story, right? And my story was that the only reason he sent me a birthday card was because my brother was staying there. When the fact of the matter is that my dad didn't know where I was until my brother was there. And so anyway, working through a lot of this, in one of these development things, I realized how much I was going through life, and in conversations when somebody would talk about their dad, in my head, it was like, oh, your dad never loved you. Right. And my dad was very, I guess what you would say, tight. Like my mom said, you know, when I was born that, well, when my brother was born, she had to buy a used crib. You know, he was very, very tight, and he saved his money, and he was very frugal or whatever. And so I thought, cause he never bought me anything, you know, that meant he didn't love me. So I had all these stories going on in my head, and I reacted and made decisions based on those stories that weren't even true. And so, anyway, it's just interesting how we have programs, right, that run. And so we might interact with people, like Trish says, all of a sudden something shows up, the ego is there, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Either I got to look at myself, or I got to have an understanding. We don't know what people have gone through. We don't know where people are at in their lives. And one of the things that I didn't have, I don't think until, you know, the last several years, was empathy. I didn't have empathy for people. I knew I was just working my butt off. You know, you want to have a bad life? Let me tell you about my life. You know, I lost my dad at 19. I lost my husband. You know, I had every reason to walk around with a chip on my shoulder, but I just kept plugging along. And so that's where I thought I didn't have empathy for people, because I felt like, oh, your story's not even close to my story. Oh, you think that was bad? Let me tell you this. And in realizing that I was just comparing my badness in my life to their badness. Let's just see how low we can go here. And, you know, by the end of the conversation, I'd be like, oh, wait. Oh, and I got one more thing. So. Oh my gosh. All right. Does anybody, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, who are they that can point fingers and judge, right? Who are they? Who, even in myself or you or Pamela or Trish, I mean, you know, we are who we are because we made choices, and we're living through that. And so I also want to see this empowerment go towards, you know, not only do we need to beat ourselves up all the time, because Lord knows we have enough in the world that beats us up, but I am so excited about the future of what we can do. We were talking on the call last night, or just our rehearsal, I guess you'd call it. We were talking about the possibilities of this empowerment and where we can take it, and how it can feed moms, and we can talk about real topics, our schools, and the guests that we want to have on this show. And I got so fired up about it. It took me a long time to go to sleep, because I was thinking this could be the very platform for the things that we've been working on. You know, the fundraiser for the school program that I've always dreamt of, the helping the young people, because we talk about needing to get everybody healthy and wealthy and wiser and everything. You've got to start with those children, and then you work through that process. And we as women know how hard that can be. And I was loving that conversation, and the uplifting, and the ability to have all of this female talking and sharing, and the possibilities of what this could do. And you know what, tonight, this is the beginning. This is the first call, the first Zoom meeting, and I just think that we're going to look very soon into the future and think this was a very powerful night. And you know, I would love to offer up the possibility for people to put on here or email or whatever the boss Mary Ann and Pamela and Tricia say do, because I'm just feel like I'm just out here showing up for them. they're the masters behind this. But send the information if you want to know, if you want us to cover particular topics or bring on a particular guest. I mean, you know, these ladies know everybody in the industry. So they were listing off names last night, and I was just like, oh my goodness, I want them. And we don't even at this point have enough shows for it. But I think this is a powerful platform. So share with all of your women. We need to be blowing this up and spending Tom's money on this Zoom program, because the more people that come on board, the more money it costs to run it. I think that's wonderful. I was watching some FaceTimes tonight on Facebook or live whatever's, and I was looking at Margie talking to Amber, and you know what? We women have it going on, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. I totally agree. Does anybody, yeah, so what Lorene, just to reiterate what Lorene was saying, we want this to be a call, and we want it to be something or show or whatever we decide that, you know, whatever it is, but we want it to be around you. And like we said, we know a lot of people. I mean, between the four of us, we can get some tremendous guests on here, and we have a couple ideas, but we want to provide value for all of you that attend and for other women that get on here. And so if you've got people that you're like, oh, I would love to hear from Lisa Grossman, you know, I've always admired her, or, you know, we were talking about, you know, some of the other, Courtney Looper, you know, she's a great inspiration.
Oh my gosh, and what stories they have. If you've never had, and I know Marianne you have, but the opportunities to talk to those women and know where they've come from. I mean, one was in prison. One met her husband, got married 3 days later publicly, or whatever, you know, a month later, whatever it was. Amazing women, amazing.
Amazing women, amazing stories, and very empowered, you know, because I think once we take our destiny, you know, into our own hands and we make it what we want it to be, and what, you know, and it's really interesting because, oh yeah, we can get Annalisa Brown on here, is having those, knowing that we do have control, that we're not just riding some crazy wave out there and we're just waiting for the next thing to slap us in the face, because we do have this, you know, we do have control over the decisions that we make. All right. Does anybody want to add anything?
I do.
Oh, Trish?
So, because we are not longevity specific, ladies, we are also wanting to bring in people from outside longevity, right? There's a lot of powerful women out there who are not in our businesses yet. However, that doesn't mean that they're not worthy, and we want them. We want them online with us. We want them to share their stories on empowerment, and because we are in a fabulous arena, who knows what will happen? We'd like to have people like Glennon Doyle Murphy, like Jen Sincero, any of these authors that you've read, these very empowerment, powerful books by women. Let's get them on too. It doesn't have to be just longevity. That's the other call that's co-ed.
Right.
So let's open this.
The other thing, people in your community, right?
Exactly.
You know, are doing things in the community that you would like to have them come on and speak. I think Lorene was talking about the new female superintendent in the school, right? And how, you know, it's the first woman that they've had ever. And
Right.
so how empowering is that to hear from someone like that? All right, we've got like 6 minutes. Does anybody have anything else or any questions or anything they want to say?
Feedback?
Feedback, yeah. I'd love to get some feedback. I mean, do you guys think there could be some value here for you and other people on your team? You know, we're going to talk about mindsets. We're going to talk about money and women. What, Pamela?
You know, I want to bring into the ideology of choice and perception.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it brings up for me. Just another little quick story is that, you know, my dad died when I was 13. Well, my pop-up died when I was 15, and that's my mother's father. And he was the greatest man in the world until my wonderful hubby, Andy, came into my life. But he was my most beloved. And he never actually said the words, "I love you," until 3 days before he died. He ended up with cancer too, but the chemo is what killed my dad. My pop-up decided not to do the chemo. But I always knew that he loved me because of the way that he behaved with me, and we understood each other. But I also found it to be very interesting that my perception was very different from my mother's perception of her father. So spending time, because my parents were divorced when I was little, I kind of grew up with my papa being like a father figure when I was little. And so here my mother had the very same circumstance, but yet she felt like her dad didn't love her. And one of the reasons was because when she would come home from school and she'd say, "Oh, Dad, I got a 95 on my test," and my papa would say, "Who stole the other 5 points from you?" And I laughed because I knew what he was doing. He wasn't being critical. He was playing with her, but she didn't get it. And even to this day, she doesn't get it, but it's because of her perception. And so if we can change our perception of how we look at things in the world, we can change how we react to them. We have a choice in how we allow ourselves what we accept into our lives. And so I just wanted to add that little part.
And Marianne, one thing that I think would go along with what you were saying, and that's beautiful. But I built my real estate career on perception that I was the only realtor in town. So thank you, Pamela. Mm-hmm. But Marianne, I think it's important that we share too, because this is a safe room. This room will not be a recruitable room. You know, we want people. I know I've invited a lot of people outside of Longevity to join us. And so this and so the first and third Monday, tell me if I'm wrong, because I stay in the dark. Remember, the first and third is this type of forum. And then we're going to have training, Longevity training on the second and fourth, right? So there will be an interactive training for Longevity on the second and fourth. And then, like I said, the first and third is about empowerment of women. And yes, not yet are they in our business, but we do want people outside of our industry, because we all bring value. And there's a lot of things I've learned from women that are not in Longevity. So I love that. And I just want to make sure everybody knew that we do have a time that we will be training with Longevity, but this one and the third.
Exactly.
On here. Oh, I think we're done. Unless anybody has anything else to say or add. And I appreciate all of you guys being here tonight for our inaugural call, our first Zoom. And I don't know, I can see the four of us just really expanding on this. And Lanny, thank you. We'd love your support and love that you were
here. Can I say something to all of you?
Yes.
Your stories were absolutely beautiful, and sharing from the heart like you do, just it personally just makes me want to cry.
Aww.
So good job.
No crying, Lanny.
No crying. Thank you. Thank you. We love you.
We love you, Lanny.
I love you
Best
guys.
roommate ever.
And I got the call wrong. I was supposed to be on the call tomorrow night.
Oh, good. So you got to stay.
Oh, Lanny, I thought you stayed with us.
It was
I
awesome.
thought you just.
Oh,
I thought you kicked that other call to the curb, Lanny.
Lanny, you can cry.
She
I
loves
have
you.
to be able to cry.
okay. I'm going to unmute everybody. And let's just tell each other how much we love each other. Cindy, thank you.
I just love you all. You guys
Jennifer
are awesome.
Salzman, thanks for coming. And Dina, and oh my goodness. And
Love you all so much. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for spending the time with us.
It's beautiful, Cindy.
Looking forward to more.
All
Awesome.
right.
Good night.
Guys,
Good
bye.
night.
Love you.
All right. Love
Bye,
you.
Cindy.
Thanks.
You've heard of the View, the Talk, we're the Zoom.
The Zoom. We're the Z.
Good night,
See you, women.
The Z women. All right.
That's it.